back to the phone line. Swan, he's listening in Kansas City, Kansas. Hi.
Hello, Hank.
Hi.
Hey. I want to be as quick as possible. So as a young Christian, I'm trying to make sense of the scientific worldview and just kind of the evidence that's been there from contemporary science. And I've always wanted to be critical of my apologetics. And I just remember, reading about evolution and human origins. And I really struggle with the whole idea of making sense of it with the Bible. So here's my question. If I accept the scientific view of human origins and try to believe God directed the process of evolution, or at least was the intelligent cause of the origin of life, then the evidence shows that there was death and horrible amounts of suffering through the evolutionary process, regardless of whether or not we sinned. So are we to believe God intentionally created us to suffer and die, or that Adam and Eve weren't real, making the gospel of Christianity have a huge hole in the message?
Wow, that's beautifully stated. Let me say at the very start, I think that there's a conundrum for the view as you expressed it, and that is that God can no more direct an undirected process than he can create a squared circle. And yet that is precisely what a theistic evolutionary view presupposes. So I don't think that we want to suppose that God can do something that God cannot do. God cannot lie, God cannot steal, God cannot act outside of the parameters of who he is, and he can't do those things that are illogical. He could do things that are possible, but he can't do those things that are illogical. So no one can create a one-sided triangle because triangles by definition have three sides. No one can create a squared circle because a circle by definition is not a square. So you can't do those things that are illogical. In terms of evolution simply flies in the face of the scientific evidence, the best scientific evidence. Now, I'm not talking about microevolution or changes within kinds, but I am most certainly talking about macroevolution. In terms of the Bible, there's nothing whatsoever that we find in doing good science that conflicts with a biblical worldview. I think the problem is that people read things into the biblical worldview, most particularly into the biblical text, that the text is never intended to tell us. For example, the text is not intended to tell us how old the universe is. The text is not intended to tell us exactly when Adam and Eve came on the scene in human history. But what the text is intended to tell us is that from one man God made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth. He determined the exact times and places that they should live, and he did that so that men might reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. So there is a real Adam and Eve. There's a genealogy that is given, but the genealogy is not comprehensive. It is not sequential. It is symmetrical. You have 10 on one side of the flood, you have 10 on the other side of the flood. So there's a purpose. The idea with the genealogies is chirological, not chronological. So we have no problem whatsoever in the Bible with the notion of an old universe. That question is answered by doing good science.